speaking. Now, just to help you better understand what Ghana is, the Ghana story, I symbolize it with the three O's. I call it the story of the three O's. The first O is opportunity. We are opportunity rich. We are naturally endowed with quite some significant mineral resources. For example, gold. We are currently Africa's #1 gold producer. We have bauxite, we have manganese, we have iron ore, we have lithium, we have oil and gas as well. And beyond that, we also have diamonds, and we have significant arable land for farming. And relative to the sub-region, I believe that we offer a competitive working force because of the relatively high literacy rate in Ghana. But beyond that is the policies that the government has put in place to actually open up the country and the economy for partnership and engagement. Now, the second O is openness. The second O is openness, in the sense that we are very proud to say we are a firm believer in the rule of law and democracy. So Ghana has a very open door approach with its investors and with the people who come in. And even our regulations are written to ensure that we treat foreigners who come in the same as we treat Ghanaians, especially if you are doing business here. We are #1 in the Peace Index in West Africa. We are also known to be one of the happiest countries by all sorts of surveys. But we engage. We have a public-private sector participation forum with the president once a quarter to make sure that he involves the private sector in the policy formulation and establishment and even enactment. And we are also known as a beacon of security in the West African sub-region. And so we are positioned pretty well as a country that is going places. And then the last O is we are very optimistic. A new government came in 2017, and through a lot of work that it did, it actually reversed the decline in the GDP growth, which was at 3.6% in 2016. And by 2017, our GDP had grown by 8.1%. By 2018, it had grown by 6.3%. And by 2019, it had grown by 6.5%. And we had actually projected a 6.8 growth. Actually, it was the World Bank and the IMF had actually projected a growth rate of 6.8% come 2020. But we all recognize we know what 2020 means to everybody today, that the major disruption to economies that came out of the disruption to supply chains, lockdowns, and the clear and present danger to lives and livelihoods meant that we couldn't repeat it. But notwithstanding, for those 3 years, we had an average growth rate of 7%, making it one of the fastest growing economies in the world. But even under the COVID terms, Ghana has been recognized as one of the countries that have dealt quite well with the COVID pandemic. And so and the economy showed some modicum of robustness. And so we grew by 0.4%, a marked departure from the minus 3.3% that was projected for the region. That makes us still comparatively attractive as a place to invest in. And so that's the story of the three O's. But we are very clear on the objectives that we set up. And even post-pandemic, we have already formulated a strategy. First, of course, the first part to save lives and livelihoods, but to recover from the ravages of the pandemic, to grow the economy in a more structured and sustainable and irreversible way. Of course, COVID brought the country to its knees. And so many countries were hit economically. And despite the views that FDI was going to, a significant drop in FDI across board globally by UNCTAD, 2020 was rather interesting for us because total foreign direct investment rose up to 2.65 billion in a number of sectors, most of them in the manufacturing and in the services sector, which was a vote of strong confidence in the Ghanaian economy by investors. Needless to say, our last exploration to the bond market was the first time an African country had actually raised money at over 40%. And it was at the lowest rate we had. Even those that we had borrowed at medium rate were the lowest rate we had as a country. Now, that clearly indicates that there is some confidence in the Ghana story. And I believe that story is one of consistency, is one of openness, one of attractiveness, and definitely one of optimism going forward. And so I think that places us at a very competitive stage. And that's why, if you're an investor coming to Africa, your best chances of having a soft and more conducive landing is landing in Ghana. And by the way, all these achievements have led us to host the headquarters of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And therefore, we are positioning ourselves as a spearhead of an African industrialization drive, where we will add value to all our numerous resources and increase the wealth on the continent. And so as a country, we are clearly committed to that agenda of regionalizing our economy and taking advantage of the 1.3 billion population of the AFCFTA, but also using it as a good market opportunity for countries from developed countries for companies from developed countries who want to manufacture for Africa. Ghana offers you that opportunity, and we have developed all sorts of policies to enable that. One of the significant ones being the one district, one factory policy, where government intends for the establishment or will assist in the establishment of a manufacturing or value addition or factory enterprise in each of the 260 districts nationwide. What that would do would democratize our economy and open it out to the African sub-regional ECOWAS. And therefore, Ghana, like I said, has positioned itself that with all the necessary incentives and what we need to do to be a foothold and also the landing port for manufacturers who want to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And in light of that, we recently opened a new airport and also the largest port in Africa, the Tema Port, which has a capacity of doing 3.7 million TEUs. And being in the center of the world, we are ideally positioned as a logistics hub. It takes 6 hours to get to almost every part of the world across our borders from Ghana. Of course, unless you're going to Australia, somewhere that it will take you much longer. But to the US, to the UK, and southern part of the continent, and to Europe, it doesn't take you more than 8 hours. And that itself is a paradise for logistics business. And as we set ourselves to spearhead this African Continental Free Trade Area, we also want to facilitate trade and investment into Ghana and into the continent. And that is why we are competitive.
That's a great answer, very complete. I really like the 3 O's approach. Congratulations for that. That actually sums it up very well. You were mentioning, of course, openness as the second O, and which brings me to my next question regarding ease of doing business in Ghana. You were mentioning that in West Africa, Ghana is currently ranked #1. However, you were also mentioning the positioning of Ghana as a manufacturing hub for international companies that are interested in coming to the country. When checking the ease of doing business, let's say ranking or index, Ghana is still ranked 118th, if I'm not wrong, in the worldwide. So
that's correct.
So having these 3 O's approach and the openness and these new positioning that you want in terms of manufacturing, how can ease of doing business be further improved so that the worldwide ranking goes down actually?
Actually, you're spot on that. And we have since last year, in fact, since 2019, engaged in a significant reform program. There are 2 anchors of it. There's what we call the business regulatory reform, which is looking at all the legal regulatory boundaries of doing business in Ghana and using a guillotine approach to make them much easier to facilitate, but also to make it more attractive and pain-free for the investor, removing as many bottlenecks and costs for the investor to be in Ghana. And then, of course, there's also the investment climate reforms, which we are currently working on and would have been over before the middle part of the year. But we also had to ensure that we were all in consonance with the Pan-African investment protocols that which are going to be signed by the AFCFTA. But at the end of the day, for us, we are creating an atmosphere that embraces significantly the SDGs, but more importantly, SDG 1 and SDG 17. Now, SDG 1 is poverty eradication and elimination, and SDG 17 is partnerships and linkages. And so through those two, we are motivated to ensure that the investment climate for us and an investor coming to Ghana is a partnership. It is not an event. And so as we go out to market for investors, we are looking for those who have a long-term view and want to partner with us as a country for mutual benefit. And so those reforms we are taking very seriously. The GIPC is leading the investment climate reforms. And we have come out with a comprehensive, should I say, document which tries as much as possible to eliminate all the bureaucratic bottlenecks that an investor will face if he comes in, and rather make it attractive for him to be able to actually do his business. Because for us, the more foreign direct investment comes in, the more businesses you can set up. The more businesses you set up, the more you can employ people and create a bigger economy. The bigger the economy you create from your investment, the more taxes government can collect and create an even better experience. So it's a partnership that is systemic, that we believe that is what it is. But beyond that, we also think that Ghana is rightfully positioned, as I said before, as a major recipient of foreign direct investment for the country itself, but for also the African development agenda. And I hope that makes quite a bit of sense to you.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Grant, you were mentioning in these two questions, of course, oil, minerals, gold, arable land, growth in manufacturing and services. And of course, you have different types of companies coming into the country, as you were mentioning. I just want to ask you if you, as part of the GIPC, have a special agenda in terms of sectors that you wish to focus, or it kind of like depends on the types of companies that want to invest in Ghana?
Oh, no, certainly no. We do have an agenda. We do have priority areas that we are looking at, of which, of course, energy is one, but not just energy, but migrating to renewable and sustainable energy so that we actually change the energy mix and so that we can reach at least 10% of our energy sources from renewables and sustainables. So that's a given. But also to bring down the price of power such that we can industrialize, because that's critically subjective to the price of power that you can acquire. And then, of course, infrastructure. Why infrastructure? Because we want to connect the country. So we had an aggressive plan since 2017 to actually put in place 4,000 kilometers of new railway lines and approximately 10,000 kilometers of roads of all various grades. To ensure that we can actually reach every corner of the country, but also go into the sub-region to West Africa. And then of course, we have the manufacturing and the industrial policy of the One District, One Factory, which began 3 years ago. And we are gradually getting at it. As I speak, there are plans for over 300 new factories, of which some close to 80 have already been established. And that is the way we want to go systematically. So we are looking at adding value to all our resources instead of the previous regime where we exported our minerals and resources raw. We are now going to add value to those resources to actually go further up the value chain. And in doing so, we also have established the maximum of a Ghana Beyond Aid, where we are telling the investment community that we are not necessarily looking for aid and we believe that the time for handouts from developed countries is over. What we offer is a mutually beneficial opportunity of partnerships to ensure that the investor benefits and we also benefit significantly out of the investment. So we are very clear. And on the back of that, post-COVID, we set up the agenda called the Ghana Cares Agenda. Ghana Cares means COVID alleviation and revitalization of enterprises support program. In there, the areas that we've highlighted are areas that will enable us recover and revert back to the economic growth rates that we had before. And of course, industry is one, the health sector is one, is the other. We already have an aggressive education policy of free senior high school, but technology also is going to play a major role in all that, apart from what I mentioned before of energy and infrastructure. Agro-processing will be key because we are basically an agricultural country, and therefore adding value to our agricultural resources and improving production and productivity is key.
Great. Mr. Grant, you were mentioning the 300 factories that are planned to be built. When do you think the country will be ready to offer all of these 300 factories?
Well, they are already in offer, and I did say that some 80 are already in production.
Yeah.
Most of them in the export sector, adding value to our raw materials, for example, in the horticultural and agro-processing space. They are already working, and progressively these factories are being built, and there are opportunities for private sector investment. And so as we go on, I wouldn't be surprised that by the end of this year we already have over 100 of them in operations. What government will do is to facilitate and provide the basic support to get private sector to invest in these factories.
Oh, that's actually a great pace. I know that you had mentioned the 80, but if you're going to have another 20 online by the end of the year, that's actually very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. And they are going to utilize our own raw materials to build these factories. And we are already seeing other great opportunities come in. For example, because of the industrial policy we have, there's a 12-point industrial policy which outlines a plan to make Ghana a hub in certain specific economies. For example, oil and gas, petroleum, and other stuff, cocoa production and processing, pharmaceuticals, technology, and then education, just to mention a few of the 10. But those are the areas in which we are developing a hub strategy. And the government's plan is to ensure the establishment of special economic zones and industrial parks in each of the 16 regions in the country. Now, this is not something we intend to do. We are actually doing it, and there are quite a number of industrial parks already set up as private ventures with investors from the US, from the investors from the UK, investors from China, and investors from Africa. So the plans are ongoing, and that is why I said that the Ghana Cares is to ensure that we actually revert back to the pace of growth in which the economy had before.
Great. Now that you mentioned the Ghana Cares program, I just wanted to ask you, besides this that has been done on a national level, what is the GIPC also offering in terms of services to different companies that want to invest in Ghana?
As the nation's investment promotion agency, our mandate is really to solicit, attract, facilitate foreign direct investment, mostly in partnership with indigenous direct investors. And so we do actually register foreign investors in Ghana. But beyond that, we've set up an aggressive aftercare service at the GIPC, which adds great value to the whole investment experience, because one of the aspirations of the president is that in the medium term, we should aggressively pursue making Ghana one of the best places to do business and invest on the continent. And so, and therefore, with our aftercare service, we actually preempt by visiting foreign direct investors and indigenous direct investors and finding out what problems they have, how we can make the experience better, and then acting as a support base for them between government and the regulatory agencies. And that has been pretty good. And I believe is one of such acts that made us attract the amount of foreign direct investment we're able to do in 2020, even in the wake of the pandemic.
Okay, great. And I can imagine that one of the interests that Ghana has, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is bringing part of the diaspora back to Ghana. And
Absolutely.
I was seeing that one of the services that you offer is the Diaspora Investment Desk. So if you could briefly tell us what it consists of and how is this going to directly benefit both the diaspora community and Ghana?
Absolutely. I mean, the diaspora represents a very important component of economic development in many countries. I mean, we can cite examples from Israel, India, the Philippines, Malaysia, where the diaspora has been very instrumental in raising capital for investment in their home countries. And quite recently, I'm sure you had Nigeria raise a diaspora bond of some $300 million to fund specific projects. The diaspora is very important. And I'll tell you one interesting fact. Last year, the diaspora was estimated to have brought in inward remittances of about $3.6 billion. Now, that was much more than what foreign direct investment brought in of $2.65 billion in the year 2020. So they are a significant tool de force in facilitating economic growth. First, they bring physical capital, they bring expertise, they bring a good cultural blend, and are actually ambassadors for bridging different cultures and different economies. So the diaspora is very important. And if you look at even at the African American economy, which is some 1.3 trillion spending every year, if we're able to attract just 10% of that, that will be 130 billion. Enough to change the infrastructure and bridge the infrastructure gap of Africa. So the diaspora is also very important to the continent. And so for us at GIPC, we set up a diaspora desk to engage. We are currently working as a nation on something we call the Homeland Act that will actually define, the protocols for engagement in the diaspora. And beyond that, the actual operational instrument will be the diaspora policy, which we expect to be out in the next 2 months to help us, to guide us and help us attract investment from the diaspora, but also to facilitate it when it comes in.
Great. Thank you for your answer, Mr. Grant. Another service, or I don't know if it's a service per se, but it's the valid GIPC certificate that you give to Ghanaian enterprises. How has this helped companies further attract investment or grow inside the economy per se?
Well, the GIPC, as the nation's foremost investment promotion agency, we also have a little bit of a regulatory bit where we actually do give certificates to all investors who come through our doors. Now, what's the benefit? The GIPC as well was the only agency that could actually give incentives for investors in certain areas. For example, if you are coming to invest in manufacturing, you were duty exempt for the importation of your equipment and some of your raw materials. And so for many agencies who are coming in, coming through the GIPC is important enough because they can't actually are eligible and can apply for those incentives. But beyond that, the fact that we have an aftercare service that would sort of help you and hold your hands to negotiate all the nuances of the market is a major attraction of GIPC. And so we believe that we are positioning ourselves very well to assist investors and also intermediate with the problems that they have in the economy and make sure that they are able to convert their business, their entrepreneurial skills and their ideas into real sustainable businesses and create those enduring partnerships that we are looking for.
This brings me to, I think, an important question for the GIPC, which is the case, the yeah, the case study of a possibility of Amazon arriving to Ghana. And I wanted to ask you, how has the GIPC participated in this negotiation? What type of benefits are you probably offering, if you can share that information, because it's probably not shareable at the moment. And
Yes, you are right. You're right about that. But government has shown commitments to it, and I do know that government, through the Minister of Communications, has actually sent a letter to Amazon to welcome them into discussions to see how best we can support them build a business regional headquarters in Ghana and extend beyond that. I'm sure you recently heard that Twitter announced that it was actually bringing its regional headquarters into Ghana. United Airlines was also positioning Ghana as its regional landing spot. So we are in that phase where technology is becoming key to the economy, and government has actually set out a policy to ensure that they will use technology as the main ways of engagement between the citizenry and government. And so that is very important for us. And we are also looking to attract major players on the continent to put their headquarters in Ghana, because we will provide the infrastructure and we'll provide the support for it. After all, the headquarters of the AFCFTA is in Ghana. And I think if you want to be where the action is going to be in Africa, this is where it's going to be, and this is where we would like to locate. But definitely, not to just say that we are looking at a Ghana agenda. I mean, from Ghana, we are looking at an Africa agenda and seeing how best we can facilitate investments into the African continent. So, for example, I represent Sub-Saharan Africa on the steering board of the World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies. And beyond that, I'm also a board member of the OACPS Endowment and Investment Fund, such that we can have a major representation in Africa to ensure that we actually create a conducive and responsive investment climate, not only in Ghana, but in Africa.
Great. That's actually a great way to end. I want to ask you for a final statement, Mr. Grant, that invites, or what would be your message to any investor from the world that would like to invest, as you said, not only in Ghana, but for Africa? What would be that final statement?
You know, Felipe, by the year 2015, Africa would be 1/4 of the world's population. And that population will have a very exciting demography, in the sense that it's believed that about some 70% thereabouts will be less than the age of 35 years old. And out of that, some 60% will be between the ages of 18 and maybe 30. That in itself is a major opportunity waiting, a major consumer opportunity waiting to be harnessed. As we speak, the African population is 1.3 billion people, but yet it is a continent that has been importing for quite a while. But now it's clear that the continent is changing its fortunes. And when you look at the 10 fastest growing economies in the world today, at least 6, if not 7, are from the continent of Africa. And all want to add resources, want to add value to its resources. Africa still has 90% of the world's platinum resources. It still has about 90% of the world's remaining cobalt. It has about 75% of the world's remaining lithium, amongst other things, and not to mention gold and oil and gas, of which about some 12%. And therefore, the continent itself is a major attraction. And as the world retools post-COVID, it will need those resources. It will need to form those partnerships with the continent that will be mutually beneficial in a much more structured way than it was before, when all we did in the continent was to export raw materials. Now, we are inviting partnerships to actually produce on the continent and optimize value. And so for the investor who is looking to come, this is the time. In the future, you would miss out on that opportunity if you don't look at the continent today. It's currently a 3 trillion economy, but the projection is by 2030 onwards to 2050 to be a 7 trillion economy. The continent will be larger than India, it will be larger than China. It will be a significant player in the world, because not only would it have the waiting market, but it could also be the supply line of the world's labor that is required to change the fortunes of the world going forward.
Excellent message, Mr. Grant. Thank you so much again for your time.